You want to take back our city, Bat? You want revenge for what they've done? Let me show you the way. Today on the Comic Book Report, Batman Rebirth Deluxe Edition, Book 6. Stick around and check it out. Greetings from Gotham, everyone. My name is Dominic, and you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today, at long last, I'm reviewing the conclusion of Tom King's epic Batman run in Batman Rebirth Deluxe Edition, Book 6. This oversized hardcover was one of my most anticipated purchases for 2022, and I'm happy to finally be giving it a review. So let's dive in. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Tom King and penciled by Mikel Janin. The issues in this volume were published by DC Comics beginning in 2019. The volume itself collects Batman issues 70 through 85, Batman Annual number 4, and Batman Secret Files number 2. This oversized hardcover is 496 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection, as well as commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that oversized hardcover from DC Comics. Just so you guys know, for these Batman Rebirth Deluxe editions, the first 3 volumes had a glossy print page. Volumes 4, 5, and this volume 6 have matte paper stock. And the spines of 4, 5, and 6 are black, where 1, 2, and 3 are white. Otherwise, formatting is pretty consistent across all 6 of these volumes, but I just wanted to throw that out there for collectors who may not know otherwise. Across the back cover, we have some more great art, along with a blurb about the collection, pricing info, and of course, what this collects. Some sources online say that this volume doesn't include issue 72, but I believe it does, collecting issues 70 through 85 in a straight shot, along with the annual and the Secret Files issue I mentioned earlier. And I want to make sure we take a look at the exterior dust jacket and spend some time looking at the under the dust jacket artwork for this collection. Now that we're finishing up with that dust jacket, I do want to go ahead and spend a second on that under the dust jacket artwork. We have the Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman and, of course, our very own Bruce Wayne Batman going through the desert. It's a pretty pivotal couple of issues when that occurs, and I like that we have that reproduced here on the under the dust jacket. Maybe not the most flashy or fun under the dust jacket art, but I'm still so happy to have it. The coloring is really nice, and overall, it's a really well-made collection. And as we go ahead and finish with all the exterior shots here, I'm going to go ahead and spend a moment to take a look at the binding for this volume, just so all the collectors out there can get an idea of what they can be expecting. Maybe not the most incredible binding in the world, but I have no serious complaints. There is a little bit of gutter loss, but I feel like that's almost standard with collected editions these days, and overall I never really felt myself too burdened by that, especially when you press down the pages for reading. And now that we've done the exterior work, as well as taken a quick look here at the binding, I think we can finally begin the collection in earnest and dive into the collection itself. As I mentioned before, this is an oversized hardcover, so it does have the dimensions of your standard omnibus and other oversized hardcovers for the most part. We don't have omnibus editions for the Tom King Batman run as of yet, but these are a nice alternative in case you're not willing to wait for a potential omnibus down the line. I will say one thing I note about this whole collection, I really wish it would have stayed consistently the glossy page print that we got in the first 3 volumes. It did feel like a step back or a step down when they switched over to the matte paper stock. I know that sometimes people prefer this, and I will say it's a very nice print. I just would have liked to see glossy, and I for sure would have liked to see a standard for these editions. It is a little bit jarring that they switched it halfway through the run. Same with the spine, switching it from white to black. I would have preferred just having it all one consistent color, but I'm still so happy we got this collection. I know there was a bit of a gap between book 5 and book 6. At one point, we weren't sure we were going to get a book 6 that finished out the King run in this format. I'm so happy DC decided to go ahead and release it. I know I was eager to pre-order that when I found out they were doing it. And this edition has been out for a while now. I read it almost immediately, and I had planned on reviewing it, and I actually thought I did review it. And so recently I was looking through videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never finished Tom King's run for the channel here. So ta-da, here you go if you ever wanted to see me cover book 6. I know I covered some of book 5 and I believe book 1 for the channel. Let me know if you want to see some of the other parts of Tom King's Batman run covered on the channel. I've also toyed with the idea of doing a complete retrospective video covering his whole run. It's not my favorite Batman run ever, but I still did like it, and I feel like I generally preferred it over some of my peers, or at least some of the reviews I've seen from them. And what is it I do like about this run? I'm happy you asked. I feel like some people criticize the kind of softening of Batman with the Batman-Catwoman romance that is on full display throughout King's run, but I actually really love it. I don't know if I'm a softie, you guys, or what, but I love all of the Batman-Catwoman romance stuff we ever see. I know I just covered this when I talked about Hush, and I even briefly touched on it when I included Heart of Hush in that top 5 out-of-print Batman comic video I did like maybe a couple weeks ago. I'll try to link those if I remember. But anyway, I love the romance angle, and I think that no author has done it maybe as well as Tom King has, fleshing out some of the relationship building between those two characters. Obviously, they almost got married, and there's just been so much love between the two of them throughout this run. Another thing I really enjoyed about the Tom King run is it really put Bane in a new light. I feel like overall, I've never been a gigantic Bane fan, but Tom King probably writes my favorite Bane. They made him, in addition to this big brute, they've also made him the crazy kind of mastermind, and I think that that adds a layer to Bane that I hadn't seen before, that I personally really appreciated. I know some people don't like that. They preferred Bane to be a little bit more mindless, but I liked adding that mastermind quality to him. I think that it made him a bit more layered, and it made me engage more with this series as a whole. And I think that overall that actually leads into something else I like about Tom King's run, which is the kind of full circle nature of it. There's a lot of little things that Tom King ties up in this book 6 collection that he started in the first book, second book, things about Bane, the Batman-Catwoman relationship, like I've already mentioned, but also a lot of the other underpinnings with some of the other rogues and characters. I know the ventriloquist shows up in a pretty powerful way in here. And anyway, I'm just really impressed. I think also the implementation and utilization of Flashpoint Batman, which in Flashpoint, he was almost like a grim anti-hero. In this, he's like a full-scale villain that ends up kind of turning on his son, while claiming to have his son's best intentions at heart. I thought that that was kind of a masterstroke as well, and I was so shocked to see Flashpoint Batman show up and to see him twisted in the way he is for King's run here. Overall, I think that this was such a successful conclusion and finale to Tom King's run. I know he's gone on to do the Batman-Catwoman series, which I hope to check out at some point, but this is the end of his Batman run in earnest, and I think that overall he landed the plane well. Once again, we have the pencil work of Mikel Janin, which I have thoroughly enjoyed throughout most of this run, and I have really not a ton to complain about. As far as storylines, this really includes the Batman, the Fall, and the Fallen, as well as the City of Bane story arcs. I believe that these are both previously collected, I think in trade paperbacks and different collections like that, but still very exciting to see them both collected in this awesome oversized hardcover. Story-wise, we pick up right after the end of Book 5, which was kind of the Nightmares story arc, where Batman was in this kind of Joker, chemical-induced, crazy, psychotic vision state. A lot of people didn't seem to enjoy that story arc, but I did, and I think I covered it a little bit in Book 5. But anyway, he wakes up from that at the beginning of Book 6, and he finds himself in Arkham Asylum. So we kind of start this collection with him making his way through most of his rogues gallery to liberate himself, and it's just a non-stop fight out of the asylum, which I think was such an effective start to this book. I mean, to see him go up against so many of his rogues, like Riddler, Calendar Man, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and so many more. He is just out for blood, and he is fighting so dang hard, and I love to see it personally. I know that some story arcs we have shortly after that, we have the appearances of the Flashpoint Batman. We have this whole sequence where his dad kind of takes him out to the desert, and he kind of, I think, is trying to resurrect his dead wife with some kind of Lazarus pit or something, and him and his dad get in this Batman versus Batman brawl in this pit in the desert. Pretty wild stuff. I really enjoyed it, and I think just seeing how much Thomas Wayne has been twisted into just a crazy villain was pretty powerful to see, especially him having such a positive, like, lasting note after reading Flashpoint. To see the character twisted into this dark, villainous character was really powerful. And I like the character motivations that after Thomas Wayne not only lost Bruce in his universe, but also had to carry this dark mantle of Batman as a grown man, the last thing he wants in any universe is to see his son twisted and following in his footsteps as Batman, or at least as he perceives it. And he kind of rejects the idea that Bruce should have that mantle. Anyway, all great stuff. We find out that Thomas Wayne Batman is also in league with Bane. They've kind of taken over the manor and have forced Alfred into service. Batman is effectively broken mentally. He is kind of picked up by Catwoman and whipped back into shape to kind of get his vision and his whole mojo back. We get to see some more debriefing and building of the Catwoman-Batman relationship as they're like in some island somewhere, and he kind of comes back with renewed vigor and sense of purpose and vision to stop Bane. Bane, going into the kind of City of Bane story arc, he's kind of taken over the city, turned it into a police state. We have Flashpoint Batman as kind of the evil reigning protector of Gotham that's now under Bane's control. His Robin or Robin-like figure is a kind of Gotham girl that's sort of been brainwashed or at least convinced to aid them. And it's pretty intense. Most of the Bat family has had to go underground or not been able to fight against them over threat of punishment, things like that. And again, big spoilers, Damian decides to fight back against that and is punished, having to watch Alfred get murdered in front of him. Yes, this book includes the death of Alfred Pennyworth, the long-beloved butler and kind of father-like figure for Batman and the Bat family. This was such a startling twist and had lasting implications on the Bat family and the Bat universe. Even knowing this was coming, it was still definitely a sucker punch watching it play out in real time across these issues. One of my favorite issues in the collection is kind of the Alfred epilogue sort of grieving issue where Bruce is kind of hearing Alfred's monologue to him as he's kind of processing the death of his, closest friend and father figure. It's truly heart-wrenching and something I think that King has just done beautifully. It really lends a sense of stakes to the City of Bane and the conclusion of his story altogether. It definitely shifts the status quo in a way that hasn't been rattled like this in some time. We know that Tom Taylor's Nightwing run comes as a direct response to this event, and we know how that kind of shakes up his whole universe if you've checked out my Nightwing video. And this obviously has had different effects on like Robin and things like that. I know I covered the Robin stuff coming out of this run as well, post Alfred's demise. Just a lot of just real intense gravity, and I think that one thing that Tom King does super well is tap into the emotionality of Batman and the Bat family, between his relationship with Catwoman, but also moves like this with Alfred. He does it really well, and I think to parallel that father-son relationship with the twisted one from the Thomas Wayne Batman is just really well done. Tom King plays with a lot of just kind of parallelism and symmetry in some of his storytelling and themes, and I just think it's just a masterstroke. I think that some of the larger overarching like kind of plots we see are kind of Bruce Wayne's relationships, his father-son dynamics with characters, and his romantic entanglement. And I think that is really seen and grown throughout this run overall. I also think it's cool to see it circle back on Bane and having some of the implications, like I said, from those earlier books pay off so well in book 6. I think that overall, the King run is going to be one of those ones that I revisit every so often. I do think that there's more here than I'm even picking up on. I do think it's more nuanced than it even appears on the surface, and this is one I'm so happy to have in collected editions because I do want to go back and read this story from the beginning again. I do think that there's more layers to Tom King's run than people are talking about, in the same way I think there were more layers to Morrison's run. I think while I've enjoyed what I've read so far from Tynion's Batman, as well as Scott Snyder, who is arguably my favorite Batman writer, I think that those stories were pretty straightforward and you got what you got and it was good. I think Morrison and Tom King are a bit more dense reads, and I think that there's so much more to sink into should I make the time to go back. As far as any downsides I saw in book 6 of Tom King's run, I don't know that I have a ton of downsides. I think that there were maybe higher points in his run for me, so it would have been nice to feel like this is the best he's written of Batman for this final concluding volume. I think it's among some of his best, but I think that there were higher points to me if you take the whole run into consideration. But I think this definitely packs more of a punch than volume 5, which I still enjoyed, but I think that there was so much more action here. There was so much tying up loose ends and kind of landing the plane that it's really hard not to be satisfied with the conclusion of this run. This isn't really about the run, but again, I kind of wish this was a glossy print paper stock. I think that what we got is a superbly printed matte paper, but I would have loved to see this be the high, kind of more archival, sort of glossy paper stock. But that being said, still a wonderful collection, and I can't believe after the gap in time that DC decided to put this out. I know it made comic fans like me so happy to have all of Tom King's run in this same format, and overall, just a fantastic collection. One particular issue I wanted to note as well in this collection that I thoroughly enjoyed comes toward the end of the collection. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically showcasing Batman as he fights crime throughout his week, and it goes through the days of the week, spending a bit of time elaborating on the different villains or just crises that he has to help solve in any given day of the week. And it goes through a couple weeks, day by day, and every day it almost gets a little bit shorter. Every week gets a little shorter until every single panel is a day, and it kind of tries to distill down the heroics and kind of the shenanigans Batman gets into on a daily basis. And I think it was such an effective issue at showing just what a hero he is and how much his life is just never calming down, and he just keeps going. And I think after losing Alfred, it was just really powerful to be reminded of how tireless this hero is to keep going and to keep fighting the good fight. And I'm sure that's why Tom King included it in this collection in the position he did, but it's just masterfully done, and the way it's mapped in this collection, I loved reading that story to the end. It left a great impression for me of this whole collection. And after we finish the collection here, at the end, there's just the cover art gallery and some variant covers. Love getting to see it. These are the, bonus features at the end of any good collected edition, and I think it's a great way to finish out the Tom King run. I would have loved to see some essays or things kind of reflecting back on the run, but I was happy to get all these variant covers kind of posted for me to enjoy. I am curious to see if DC decides to do an omnibus or two in the future to collect this run, but for now, I'm so happy to have these deluxe editions. Have you read the Tom King Batman run? You'll have to let me know in the comments below. And now, as we round out book 6 of this Batman run, all that's left is to give this collection a grade. For this beautifully illustrated and successful culmination of a long Batman run, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Batman Rebirth Deluxe Edition Book 6 a B. I think time will tell for me on whether or not this will be considered a classic or iconic Batman run. I lean more that it will be versus won't be. For now, I think this is an absolute above average collection that's a probable must read for most Batman fans. I was deeply satisfied by the resolution of Tom King's arc here on Batman, and I think the inclusion of the Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman, as well as turning Bane into kind of a mastermind villain, were just the cherries on top of a long-loved run. Don't sleep on Tom King's Batman. And until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like and leave a comment, and have a good one.